Dave, it's here. It's finally here. Here it is.
Come.
The bike that we've seen underneath a bunch of pros for about a year.
Yeah, well over a year now, isn't it?
Yeah. This is the new Canyon Aeroad. This is an Aeroad CFR, it's top of the range. Dura-Ace Di2 build, £7,499 to you. There's a bunch of different builds, we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, new thing, new shiny thing.
Many new things. So first off, I guess, aero race bike. I want your opinions. How's it to ride? Fast?
Well, luckily they sent it in a grown-up size.
Oh yeah, it's not fair.
Me and Matt have had a good old go on this, and yeah, it feels very good, very, very composed. Also, slightly tightened up geometry at the back. Feels a little bit more flickable, very light as well. That's one of the big things that's happened. So that helps it when you're climbing, when you're accelerating. But mostly, when you're talking about an aero bike, you want to be talking about aero, don't you? So let's get into that. First thing to note is obviously all the cables fully internal.
Yeah, they're gone.
So completely gone. You can't see anything apart from there's a little bit of brake hose at the back there and there. That's your lot. They've worked with Swiss side on the aerodynamics. So Swiss side also do the DT Swiss wheels that this bike comes with. Done a load of work, gone through a load of different CFD models of bikes, did over 20. In the end they picked number 19, which they then sent to the Canyon engineers, and the Canyon engineers went, you might want to tweak this a bit for the ride, you might want to tweak that a bit for the ride, and came up with this, which is the final bike, which they say at 45 kilometers an hour is 7.5 watts more efficient, well, 7.4 watts more efficient.
That is quite, that's quite a saving over a bike that was, one of the kind of leading aero kind of all-road bikes, really.
Absolutely.
New things as well, we've got slightly wider tyres in there.
Yeah, so the original this is a bike that's been around since 2014, so it's due an upgrade. When it was released in 2014, it came with a 23 on the front and a 25 on the rear.
Yeah.
And they've upped that now, so now we get 25 on the front and a 28 on the rear. So at the rear, the aerodynamics on the wheel, not quite as important because you've already got broken air at that point. So this wheel's slicing into the air, and you get more of a sail effect in the side winds as well. So more important there. And also at the back, helps a bit with comfort too.
On that regard, we see tyre brands talking about the rolling resistance benefits that you can get with wider tyres, but the real benefit that you and I feel out on the road, especially on the Mendip roads where the road surface is questionable, is comfort.
Yeah, absolutely.
How have you found the bike on our roads?
It is a pretty comfortable bike, all told. I mean, Canyon have done a lot of work with specific areas of the bike, and one of them is the seat post. So one of the things you notice about this over the last Aeroad is they've moved to an aero seat post, which is important in terms of aerodynamics. But what you sometimes get with an aero seat post is because this is a big section, it's very stiff. So there's a couple of things going on here. The first is that it's clamped very low down.
Oh, that's the clamp?
This is the clamp all the way down here, basically as low as it can go, which means that more of the seat post is sprung, basically. And the other thing that's happening is inside here, you can't see it, but it moves to about half of the width. So the back of this seat post is more like an aerodynamic shroud. It's like you get on some aerodynamic wheels where it's just a carbon shroud, it's not structural. The actual structural seat post is the kind of first half of there working down. So what that means is it's a smaller structure than it looks like. And it's more flexible. And actually, at the back end, it's pretty comfortable.
Yeah?
Yeah. There's plenty of give in this. I mean, you can feel it give when you lean on it.
I mean, as I'm looking down at the bike, so we're going down from the seat post, I'm seeing a lot of deep, thick carbon tubes, especially down at these chainstays. They are humongous. So how's that affecting the stiffness? It's
a very stiff bike. Canyon were very specific that they wanted the down tube to be as big as possible without affecting the aerodynamics. So they've made it as big a section as they can, and also, you're right. There's quite a big section on the chainstays there. And, when you get out of the saddle and give it the beans, it's a really stiff platform, definitely, and also very light. So they've done a lot of work on the weight of the bike. This CFR is built up with a higher grade of carbon than the SLX bikes were. And you can build this bike up in a pro build in any size. So this is the large we've got here. weighing in at just over 7 kilos, but with a set of, shallower section tubs on, you can get down to the 6.8k weight limit reasonably easily.
I mean, that's telling that the latest time that we've seen this bike in the pro peloton has been under riders like Alejandro Valverde, Warren Barguil, and those are climbers, and they're using this in the mountains.
Yeah, on big mountain stages.
That was in the Dauphiné, the Tour de France. We've seen Mathieu van der Poel winning races on this as well. So obviously not a slouch when it comes to the climbs.
No, not at all. I mean, it's kind of doing a similar thing to Specialized with the SL7, which is, moving away from a very aggressive geometry, but making a lighter weight aerodynamic bike as well. So this is not as aggressive as the outgoing Aeroad.
So has it come up and back a little bit?
Slightly higher at the front. This particular bike is about 10 mil higher in terms of stack, slightly shorter in terms of reach. So this bike's got a stack to reach ratio of 1.45, as opposed to 1.41 for the outgoing bike. So a little bit more upright. What that means is, in an upright position, you're less aerodynamic, but it also means that this drops position is more accessible. So you're likely to spend more time in it.
That's going to be good for riders like you and I, where we're not pro, we don't spend however many hours a week on this bike. You might have.
We don't do our core exercises.
We don't do our yoga. No. So holding an aero position, if it's a slightly more accessible aero position, surely that's going to make it easier to hold and make us more aero in the long run.
Absolutely, and it's a really comfy bike in the drops as well. The drops position is really comfortable on these bars.
Well, why don't we take a look at those bars, because there is stuff going on kind of underneath that we can't see.
Yeah, there is. So it looks like a normal integrated bar. It's not. It's a 3-piece bar. So the reason this has come about is because Canyon wants to send this bike out completely built, and when you're routing internally, it's more difficult to do that.
It's a nightmare.
You can't take the stem and stem off and just lob it down the side of the bike like you can with a normal stem and steerer. So what they've come up with is a very clever system whereby this is a 3-piece bar. So under here there are 2 bolts which locate these drop ends into this middle section, and then it comes with them dropped off, and then when you get the bike, all you do is slot them back in, tighten it all up, and you're good to go. Really clever. The other thing that's clever about it is they've included 3 positions. So it comes up in the middle position here, and you can move it 2 centimetres in or 2 centimetres out, depending on your preference. So you can try different positions on the bike without actually having to buy new integrated stem and bars.
That's going to be massive for people at home that want to kind of maybe try out an aero position. Usually you would have to buy a whole new bar, maybe even a new stem. You're going to be able to bring your arms in closer. You can take them out if you want more comfort. That's
especially because with a bike like this, like with an integrated system like this, it's a big commitment to get a new handlebar.
That's cables cutting and everything,
all sorts.
And mechanical work, not fun.
And the other thing that's interesting about the front of this bike is the way that the steerer works, how you adjust the height. So it's a no-cut system. There's a 10 mil and a 5 mil spacer in here that you can take out to drop it down or raise it up. But inside here, the bar actually fits inside the fork steerer. So it's a little bit like how a quill stem works. One tube inside another tube. Absolutely. And there's a single bolt here that tightens the whole thing up. It preloads in a similar way to a normal headset. So there's a preloader in here, but there's no actual bolt in there because it gets in the way of all the cables which are coming through here. So you get a tool with the bike, which you poke down through this little hole here, tighten everything up, tighten that bolt up, and you're good to go. And these spaces are split, so you don't have to take any cables out or remove anything to move it up and down.
Looks like quite a clean system
very
as well.
Neat. Yeah, it's a very neat system, and should be pretty simple to adjust the height through the range that you get.
And another good kind of adjustability feature for riders like you and I that are going to be buying this bike and want to edit our position.
Yeah, you don't
home.
have to cut anything, and you don't have to take any cables out or recable anything.
Yeah, I'm thinking no hydraulic cable cutting is an absolute blessing.
Absolutely. So there we go.
Okay, so that covers a load of your riding thoughts and quite a few bits of tech detail in there. Have you got any final thoughts on how this handles?
It's just a really good all-round bike. So me and Matt have both been out on this bike. We're basically exactly the same bike size, so we can kind of swap between us. It works really well, and we were both really impressed. It doesn't feel like an aero bike in the sense that some of them are quite monolithic in the way that they ride. They don't have a lot of give in them. This feels very lively. The fact that it's quite a short wheelbase means it's quite, it feels good on the descents. It's great on the climbs because it's really light. It's really easy to put the power down. There isn't anything that it does badly. And it's another of these bikes where you're thinking, now is there really any need for a lightweight bike and an aero bike? Because the aero bike really does all the things you'd want your race bike to do. The comfort's up there with the best aero road bikes I've tried. The seat post works really well. Handlebars are interesting. You might think that they'd be stiff. Actually, when Matt took this bike out, he didn't know that it was a 3-piece bar.
He hadn't read
the instructions, and he didn't notice anything different about the way the bar felt. He just felt it was a good stiff bar with a comfortable drop, and I would tend to agree with that. So overall, it's a really good bike. I mean, obviously we're riding a 7.5 grand build here, and you'd expect it to be.
You would.
You'd expect it to be all right.
You would hope. Speaking of this build, this has got to go, hasn't it?
Unfortunately, we don't get to keep this.
I am definitely getting Canyon to send a nice small size next for our long-term test.
Well,
I might get outvoted on that
one.
We
shall see about that. But there you go. That is the Canyon Aeroad CFR in a Di2 build, £7,499. Really interesting bike. If you've got any questions about it or about this video, ask them in the comments below. We'll get them answered for you.
And remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more of this.